why are so many of us living in cultures where we dismiss sleep, where we denigrate it and disrespect it, and act as if you're somehow weaker for needing it? So many of us, we wear our sleep deprivation as if it's some kind of badge of honor. That is especially true in the corporate world. It's true on college campuses too. As if somehow by sleeping less, that makes you a better worker or more committed to your work. It somehow makes you morally superior. It somehow makes you just better than other human beings, poor souls, who need much more than you. But the truth about that is that for all of the people who say that they don't need much sleep, that is true in a fraction of them. The data bear this out, and so do studies from my own research laboratory. So we need to stop pretending, because that's what it is. We need to stop abiding by what are cultural myths and instead abide by the science and comport ourselves and conduct ourselves in respect of the brain science that says that sleep is actually one of the most important things you can do for your performance. It's one of the most important things you can do for your brain and its ability to be healthy, its ability to function, its ability to thrive, to age well, to develop well if you're a child. We really need to finally put this idea to bed, no pun intended, that sleep is somehow optional, because it is clearly not the case. And we need to be asking ourselves, do we want to base our behavior on really well replicated decades of scientific data or on what is truly cultural mythology? So here is the first point I want to make about sleep. And in some ways, it's the most obvious one, but it's really important. And that is that literally everybody sleeps. That's not just true for humans. That's true for every single animal out there in the animal kingdom. Every animal that we have studied to date sleeps. There is no exception to that rule. So we all sleep, as you can see, some of us in more comfortable positions than others. But this is important because what does it tell you? Just from first biological principles, it means that sleep is so important that it's been conserved across species. Think about this for a second. Of all the animals out there in nature, and given how important performance is, don't you think that at least one species would have figured out how to get rid of sleep, how to dump it all together? If there were a way to do that, I promise you, evolution would have found a way. So just from biological first principles, we have to assume that sleep is critical, that it's non-negotiable, and that it's a biological necessity. Otherwise, we would be able to find at least one example of an animal out there in nature who didn't sleep. So we know that sleep is so important in terms of its function or functions that it's been conserved across species. The other thing we know is that sleep has also been conserved across time. There is no evidence that we are sleeping any less than our ancestors did. So again, what that means is that sleep is so important within our own species that we can't curtail it. The amount of sleep we need just hasn't changed across millions of years. So when you take those two facts, the fact that all animals sleep and there's not a single exception to that rule, and that within humans, going all the way back into our deep ancestry, we have not managed to figure out how, in terms of evolution, to sleep less. So given that the science is so strong, why are so many of us living in cultures where we dismiss sleep? We need to be asking ourselves, do we want to base our behavior on really well replicated decades of scientific data or on what is truly cultural mythology? So I'll leave that up to you, but I know what I'm going to do, and I know what I recommend to people who really care about optimizing their performance, their cognitive and intellectual abilities, their immune system, and their physical abilities, who care about their performance. Sleep is one of the things you need to protect the most and not disparage as if it's something that's just excessive, that you should somehow feel shame about. Instead, if you're sleeping well, if you're a good sleeper, if you engage in the power naps that I'll recommend for most of you, if you protect your sleep, you should feel proud of yourself because your performance will be, especially over time, much better than your colleagues or your coworkers or your fellow students or just whoever your comparison group is. You will truly be functioning much better.